A wise one once said, "Most men move through life as if they are alone, not just alone in the world, but alone within themselves. They chase power, yet feel powerless. They seek direction, but walk aimlessly. They pray with their lips, but doubt in their hearts. And the reason is simple. They have forgotten what resides within them. Not beside them, not above them, not distant in the clouds, within. There is a presence that lives in you, a flame so ancient, so precise, so deliberately designed to express through you, that if you truly grasped what it means to carry it, you would never hesitate about your next move again. You were never meant to live as if you are hollow. You weren't designed to claw forward as if the answers are always elsewhere. You are not required to plead for the strength you already have. But you must remember, because the world will constantly try to make you forget. It will teach you to wait for signs, to beg for rescue, to earn the right to be led. But infinite intelligence, the mind of God, was placed within you at the very beginning, and not as a theory, but as a law, as a force, as a voice that does not shout, but knows. The tragedy isn't that most people are weak. The tragedy is that they do not realize who resides within them. So they shrink, they settle, they imitate, they drift. And all the while, they carry the very power that raised mountains, divided oceans, shaped civilizations, and still waits, quietly, to be claimed. You do not need to summon this power, you only need to align with it. And the first alignment is this: you must choose to behave as if God is within you, because He is. Not when you're flawless, not when you feel spiritual, not when the world agrees with you, but now, even in your hesitation, even in your exhaustion, even in your silence. Because that presence does not show up when you become worthy. It shows up when you remember. And remembering is not an emotional wave. It's not a fleeting inspiration. It's a decision. And once you make that decision, you never walk the same again. You do not speak the same. You do not live the same. Because now you walk as one who knows, I carry the divine and I must act accordingly. To act as if God is within you is not to pretend. It is not an exercise in arrogance or religious posturing. It is a total reconfiguration of your thoughts, your practices, your stance, your tone, your speed, your presence. It is a decision to stop acting like someone who is lost and begin living like someone who is already found. As when you carry the divine, you are not asking, will I be guided? You are guided. You are not hoping for protection. You are protection in motion. You are not waiting for wisdom. You are walking wisdom, embodied. This means you do not speak with hesitation behind your words. You do not move apologetically. You do not seek permission to build, to believe, to become. You do not shrink so others remain at ease. You do not ask the world to validate something already confirmed by the infinite within you. To act as if God is within you means you stop betraying yourself. You stop negotiating with hesitation when clarity has already arrived. You stop postponing action when the instruction has already been revealed. You no longer say, I'm not ready, because you know readiness is not a state, it's a choice. Acting as if God lives in you means you stop apologizing for your assignment. You don't require others to comprehend your urgency. You don't depend on external support to walk in spiritual rhythm. You don't ask the mirror, am I worthy? Because you carry the answer within the question. It means you sit with greater awareness. You walk with deeper gravity. You pray not like a beggar, but like a collaborator. You no longer say, please show me. You say, thank you for what I now recognize. When God lives in you, you don't need to prove a thing, but you do need to protect everything. your time, your focus, your peace, your thoughts. Because when you carry something sacred, your environment must be molded to reflect it. You no longer eat what saps your strength. You no longer listen to people who drain your spirit. You no longer keep company with voices that mock your vision. You guard the gate because the gate is sacred. To act as if God resides within you means you carry a certain spiritual calm. You don't need to constantly explain. You don't need to argue your decisions. You don't need volume to validate your authority. You walk in power, not because of who you are, but because of who walks in you. And people feel it. They may not be able to name it, but they know when they are in the presence of someone who is not driven by ego or fear or popularity, but by alignment. That is what it means to act as if God is within you. It is not a declaration. It is a consistency. It is not a belief system. It is a pattern of being. It is not just what you say. It is what speaks through you. So I ask you, do your actions reflect your true identity? Do your routines, your pace, your words show the world that you never walk alone? Because those who carry the divine do not need to say it. They show it. It doesn't sit in you like a relic. It moves, it flows, it creates, and it requires a vessel. It needs a mind to move through, a voice to speak through, hands to work through, and if you will not give it yours, it will seek the one who will. Because the divine does not wait for potential, it flows through availability. When God inhabits you, you become a channel. You begin to receive thoughts that didn't come from textbooks, ideas that feel heavier than your current intellect should hold, words that arrive before your ego can prepare. And if you attempt to claim them, if you say, "Look what I did," you sever the stream. But if you say, "Use me again," the power continues. This is what the world misunderstands about spiritual brilliance. It is not man achieving greatness. It is God displaying greatness through man. And that expression flows only through those who are both available and obedient. So when the divine begins to move through you, your language changes. Your words stop chasing recognition. They become instruments. You write not to impress, but because the message is burning and must be released. You make decisions not from logic alone, but from inner alignment. You stop overanalyzing. You start sensing timing. You say yes when the moment is ripe. You say no without shame. You're no longer guessing. You're tuned. You may not always feel worthy. You may not always feel capable, but that doesn't matter, because God doesn't wait for your mood to match your mission. He moves through the one who continues to show up. He speaks through the one who stays still enough to receive and bold enough to release. And so the pressure changes. You stop trying to say the perfect thing. You stop trying to predict every outcome. You stop trying to own the result, because your role has shifted. You are no longer the source. You are the servant of the source. And in that there is no burden, only surrender. There is no race, only purpose. There is no need to compare, only clarity. Once you realize the divine is trying to move through you, you stop asking, "Am I capable?" and start asking, "Am I open?" And when you are, you become a moving embodiment of wisdom, harmony, and power. Not loud, not flashy, not self-exalting, but unshakable. So centered, so in tune, that even your stillness shifts the atmosphere. Because when the divine starts expressing through you, you stop performing, you start becoming. And that is when people stop seeing you and start seeing what's moving through you. Let us now confront the quiet deception that has paralyzed countless spiritual, gifted, and able individuals. I'll act when I feel ready. Let me say this without dilution. You will never feel ready to carry what you were born to carry. Why? Because divine assignments do not appear at the level of your comfort. They appear at the level of your willingness. Readiness is an emotion. Obedience is a decision. If you live by emotion, you will die with unrealized potential. The man who waits to feel deserving, the woman who waits to feel spiritual, the mind that waits to feel prepared misses the moment, because the divine never spoke to your feelings, it spoke to your alignment. And when that alignment arrives, you must move immediately. You don't act because you fully understand. You don't act because you feel invincible. You act because the signal was sent. And signals don't wait. They don't repeat. Every calling comes with a brief, sacred window, a gate. And those who walk through that gate in time become vessels of impact. Those who hesitate watch it close, not from punishment, but because the momentum was passed to someone who didn't wait. You must stop negotiating with your fears. You must stop waiting for your situation to validate your vision. Because he will not. The moment you receive that inner confirmation that this is the moment, that this is your message, that this is your opportunity, you become accountable. And the man who resists that accountability, who says, maybe later, who says, when I feel more confident, who says, when I have more proof, has already stepped away from the anointing. Because power doesn't flow through the perfect, it flows through the willing. And readiness isn't something you feel, it's something you choose. So I ask you, are you still waiting for more signs? Are you holding back your voice because you're afraid of being misinterpreted? Are you pausing your action because you haven't mapped out step 5, while step 1 remains untouched? Are you still seeking confirmation after having been shown what to do over and over? If so, let this be known. You don't suffer from a lack of clarity. You suffer from a lack of commitment to what is already clear. And clarity without commitment is torment. It gnaws at you every morning, the knowing, the pull, the ache, the quiet guilt, not because you're cursed, but because you've been chosen and are ignoring the invitation. Don't ask for the calling to come again. Respond to the one that already arrived. Because the divine does not waste its energy. It does not continue giving instructions to a mind that insists on emotional agreement first. The moment you say yes, without full comprehension, without full preparation, that is the moment everything starts to align. Resources begin to arrive, courage grows in action, power flows to your hands because they're already moving. And the fear that once led you begins to fade, not because it vanishes, but because it cannot keep pace with your movement. You must act before you feel prepared, because readiness is not a condition, it is the reward of obedience. Move first, and all that you thought you needed will begin to find you along the way, because that is how the divine works. Faith is not proven through stillness, it is proven through motion. So I tell you again, do not wait until your hands stop shaking. Move while they tremble. Do not wait for your voice to be steady. Speak while it shakes. Because the one who obeys even while afraid will one day carry a presence so strong that fear won't recognize him anymore. There is a type of power that cannot be faked. It doesn't come from possessions. It doesn't come from accolades. It doesn't come from how many people listen when you speak. It comes from who you are before you speak, from the weight you carry in your stillness. And that weight, the real weight, only comes when a man remembers, God is within me. Most people raise their voice just to be heard, but the one who walks with divine authority speaks softly, and yet the whole room leans in. He doesn't need to market himself. He doesn't need validation. He doesn't need to prove he belongs, because he knows he does. This kind of man doesn't talk to impress. He speaks only when it's necessary. He listens more than he answers. He does not rush into every conflict. He does not argue truth with those determined to reject it. He does not wrestle with noise, because noise is powerless against presence, and presence, true presence, is not the result of charm. It is the consequence of alignment. The more aligned you become with what's within, the less desperate you are to be seen from without. You develop spiritual gravity. People feel it when you enter the room. They may not be able to name it, but they respect it. They sense your assurance isn't born of preparation, it's born of possession. You are not possessed by fear, but by purpose. Not by appearance, but by presence. Not by a need to be known, but by the knowing that you are already known, by the one who... And this is why the man who carries God inside him doesn't act like he's looking, he walks like he's already found. Not everything, but the one thing that shapes everything else. His confidence isn't loud, it's anchored, it's calm, it cannot be bought, it cannot be imitated. This is the paradox. The closer you come to the divine within, the less you feel the need to declare it. Your stillness becomes your statement. Your choices become your theology. Your walk becomes your testimony. Because when you no longer need to convince the world of your power, the world starts responding to you in ways it never did before. Opportunities begin to flow faster. Resistance feels smaller. Criticism loses its grip. And peace becomes your atmosphere. Not because life is painless, but because you are anchored. Confidence is not volume. Authority is not noise, and spiritual alignment does not demand attention. It moves in another rhythm. It waits. It listens. It speaks only when it must. It answers when called, but never chases applause. It builds slowly, but what it builds endures. So if you're still trying to shout your way into respect, still trying to outperform your insecurity, still trying to prove you carry something meaningful, stop, be quiet, be consistent, be loyal to what already lives inside of you. Because the loudest one in the room is never the most powerful. The most powerful one is the one whose stillness unnerves the room, because it reminds others of what they've forgotten in themselves. Let them feel it. Let them notice your calm. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mislabel you. Let them misinterpret your restraint. You are not here to entertain. You are here to embody. And once you do, your quiet presence will speak louder than their most rehearsed performance ever could. Let's pause. You say you want to walk in power. You say you desire to live with deep conviction. You say you're waiting for the right time to begin acting like God is within you. But let's get real. What happens when you forget? Not in theory, but in the real moments of life. What happens when you wake up and forget who you are? You shrink, you hesitate, you overanalyze conversations that haven't even happened. One negative comment from an irrelevant person becomes the lens through which you see yourself. You scroll your mind instead of directing it. You look at your reflection not for truth, but for approval. You start asking weak, powerless questions like, am I ready? What if I fail? What if they reject me? Who do I think I am? And in that moment, you've already lost. Not because life is against you, but because you stepped away from alignment with what's already within you. The shrinking starts subtly. It begins with your posture, then your voice, then it infects your decisions. Soon, you are not living, you're maintaining, managing. And you'll excuse it. You'll call it humility. You'll say, I just don't want to be prideful. Maybe I need more time. I'm just exhausted right now. But deep down, you know the truth. You're not exhausted. You're disconnected. You forgot. You forgot that you carry something eternal. You forgot that silence doesn't mean absence. You forgot that power isn't proven by noise, it's proven by who sent you. And in forgetting, you traded your fire for fog. Let's make this practical. You had the vision, but you didn't act. You felt the prompting to reach out, but you let the fear of awkwardness stop you. You had the creative spark, but you waited for the budget to look better. You had the strength, but you shrank to stay digestible for people who don't even value you. You heard the inner yes, but asked for 3 more signs just to be sure. And now you're restless. You're exhausted, not because you've been working, but because you've been avoiding the work you know you're meant to do. Nothing depletes a soul faster than knowing what to do and doing nothing. That's what forgetting looks like. It's not flashy, it's not obvious. It's daily, it's silent, it's lethal. And that's what your opposition wants. Not to strike you down in one moment, but to slowly chip away at you by getting you to forget the fire within. So how do you stop shrinking? You remember. You remember through how you sit, how you speak to yourself when no one else is listening, how you respond when fear knocks on your door, how quickly you obey when that inner whisper rises up in your spirit. You remember through behavior, because belief without embodiment is empty. You cannot claim to walk with the divine and still crawl through life like you have no access to power. So if you've been hiding, hesitating, apologizing for the light you carry, this is your wake-up call. Sit up straighter, speak with intention, breathe from deeper places, start the assignment, say no like you mean it, walk into rooms like you are not alone, because you aren't. And when you remember who dwells within you, the shrinking stops, and the world must adjust to meet a version of you it hasn't seen in a long, long time. There's a posture a man takes when he feels empty, and there's a posture he carries when he knows he's not alone. When a man walks with nothing inside, he flinches, he second-guesses, he mimics others, he over-explains, he responds to pressure instead of applying it. And worst of all, he walks someone else's path. But the man who walks as if God is within him, this is what unfolds when the God within becomes more than just a concept. It becomes the atmosphere you carry. You generate inner gravity. You attract what resonates. You naturally repel what doesn't. You radiate a peace that no storm can touch, because you're no longer drawing your power from the outside world. You walk as if the same voice that spoke galaxies into being now walks with you. And once that truth becomes your reality, you stop looking for signs. You become the sign. So the next time you step into a meeting, a choice, or a conversation that used to rattle you, remember who is with you and walk like it. No more scanning the room to see what others are doing. No more trying to match the atmosphere. No more surrendering your authority to the most dominant voice present. You move with the quiet strength of someone who knows, I am not alone, I never have been, and everything I need to speak, build, or become is already in motion within me. Walk like every step carries intention. Walk like your silence is chosen. Walk like you're not drifting through life, hoping it all comes together. Walk like you're moving alongside the one who authored your outcome. Because you are. And the sooner your body mirrors what your spirit already understands, the more immovable you become. Now, when you say that God dwells within you, when you believe in divine strength, when you desire to walk in alignment with infinite wisdom, you must make space for Him. Have you made room? Have you quieted the chaos? Have you eliminated the distractions that block the signal? Because if your thoughts are dominated by fear, if your schedule is full of what depletes you, if your environment is flooded with voices that ridicule your calling, don't claim you're aligned. Don't declare God is within you if you've given Him no room to speak. You cannot host the divine in a cluttered space. You cannot carry infinite wisdom while being ruled by constant stimulation. You cannot hear what's sacred if your ears are tuned only to noise. This is the reason so many people never feel the power they say they believe in. Their lives are overfilled with everything but what truly matters. They say they want clarity but never stop to be still. They say they seek answers but keep consuming noise that drowns revelation. They say they want to hear God but hand over their attention to distraction. Let's be clear, your world is too loud for a whisper to survive. And God doesn't shout, He waits. He waits for you to clear the space. He waits for your racing thoughts to calm. He waits for the chaos you've accepted as normal to be released. He waits for your genuine yes, not just spoken, but lived. So what does that look like? It looks like waking up and choosing stillness before reaction, spending 10 minutes not on more noise but on sacred quiet, saying no to conversations that steal your peace, cutting off environments that shrink your spirit, fasting not just from food but from anything that clouds your clarity, guarding your ears like sacred gates, being mindful of what you take in, not because you're fragile, but because you are sick. You don't need to add more, you need to remove what's blocking the signal, because the God within you doesn't compete with distractions. He waits for space, and when you make that space, He fills it, and suddenly your thinking clears. You know what to say without rehearsing. You feel strength rise without trying to conjure it. You speak with resonance, even in gentleness. You move with calm, even under pressure, but only after room has been made. And that space isn't just physical, it's emotional, spiritual, and energetic. Ask yourself, what weight am I carrying that clogs my spirit? What ties have expired, but I'm still clinging to? What guilt, shame, or old identities am I dragging like chains? What patterns am I stuck in? Not because they're helpful, but because I'm afraid of the silence that will follow their absence. That's the uncomfortable truth. Many keep their lives noisy because silence would force them to face what they've avoided. But in that silence is where God resides. In that stillness is where your alignment begins. In that empty space is where the next divine instruction is waiting. So if you truly believe God is within you, prove it. Prove it by what you release, because the more empty the space, the more powerful the whisper. And the more powerful the whisper, the more unshakable your steps become. Make space. He's already present. Now let Him move. There comes a moment in every life when the questions must stop, the pleading, the hoping, the endless searching, the desperate prayer that sounds like, when will someone help me? When will things become clear? When will I be given the strength? And the answer, though often resisted, is this: you were never meant to keep asking. You are meant to become the answer.